All right. This is going to be weird. I've never really done this before, but this is going to be a pre-show cut. I forgot to put this into the show, so before anything starts, I need to just get it out the way so that you all can hear this. Pretty much, we're going to have an Extra Life heroclix charity raffle in Independence, Missouri at Game Cafe on October 25th, Saturday at 6 p.m. Definitely check it out. It's for a charity, for hospital charity raffle for Extra Life. All proceeds go to KU Pediatrics. $3 gets you one entry, $5 gets you two entries. Full breakdown of the prizes. It'll be in the comments, but I'm gonna put the link into the YouTube page up on the top. Okay, so if you're in the Greater Kansas City area, or if you want to swing by, do so. If you want to, if you're going to swing by, let me know so I can try to attempt to show up during the day and, shake hands, sign autograph, kiss babies, all that other good jazz. All right, Greg Place, hit that jam.
I get up from the ground, from the man from us keeping it down. Now it's time to decide on the action that'll force the time. And I feel that I can win. On the legs I'm starting to spin, starting over once again.
Welcome to the Starting Over podcast. I am your host, Edward Shelton, aka Dark Logos, and this is the show where we look at the strategies, tactics, and mechanics behind the game of heroclix. I'm recording this at 1 a.m. September 2nd, and for those in America, they know that this is the day after Labor Day, and I worked in the Tarjay this evening and got out really late, even though we were dead all the way up till the time the store closed, and afterward we just had so much stuff to put up. I'm going to give you a background information about any supermarket in America that follows the Food and Drug Administration's guidelines. If you're the a-hole, and I really do mean that gets something from the freezer or from produce and then just decides to put it on the shelf, guess what? We have to throw that away. We can't put it back because it's cold, because we have no clue how long it's been there. And you would be surprised how much food, good food, is just thrown away because folks are too dang lazy to just put stuff back into the freezer to find out where it's at. There's a ton of food I had to throw away today. And so I'm pissed. But that aside, had some good news, really, really good news today. I'm going to be an uncle, not a father. I'm going to be an uncle. So just keep that straight. So my brother and his wife are going to have a kid. So don't post if you have me on Facebook. Don't post it on Facebook or whatever else. Just mainly because she's trying to get a promotion at work and she doesn't want her job to know that she's preggers. So. You can message me in the email, startingoverpodcast@gmail.com, say grats and whatnot, or on Twitter, but just not on Facebook. If you know me on Facebook, and also if I haven't friended you on Facebook and you just send me a friend request, I'm gonna look at you like, who's this random guy that sent me a friend request on Facebook? Half the time, the stuff that I put on Facebook are like me personally as Edward Shelton, the person, not me, Edward Shelton, the podcaster. I really don't put anything about heroclix on my personal Facebook page. Like I'm in a couple of Facebook groups, but it's just like more me, the person. And so there's things that I'll put up on my Facebook that, I'll be honest, are not necessarily child friendly. Okay. Not necessarily like, oh, I'm cursing or whatnot, but I do I do put on my Facebook a lot of what's called men's issues. I know it sounds strange that there's such a category as men's issues, but there is. And some of the things involve sexual abuse to men by women, which can happen, and I'm not going to go into details on the show, and some other things, just more for awareness purposes. And I'll put it like this: I have egalitarian tendencies, but I'm not a feminist. Just for clarifications, I know that might sound weird. Most people think they're one and the same, but they're not. And also I'm a Christian, and so I put up religious things that lean in that nature. And so I understand that everyone that listens to this podcast is neither male nor Christian, nor African American, because sometimes I put up things that are black issues. So just FYI, if you do see me on Facebook, don't be shocked, like, this isn't what I was expecting. I'm like, no, this is Dark Logos or Edward Shelton, the person on Facebook, if I post, versus, hey, I'm Dark Logos, your personality here on the YouTube and on the interweb. So just FYI, it's nothing personal. Some people, I'm like, oh yeah, I talk to you all the time, friend. Other people, I'm like, who the heck are you? I don't know who you are. So that's pretty much it. Anyway, I got a couple of things that we're going to talk about today. Depending on how long this goes, we may only have one topic. If it goes really long, we might have two. If it doesn't go long at all, we might have two topics. And what I'm going to talk about is inward and outward game. Yes, inward and outward game. And if I have time, I'm going to talk about the new ATAs in brief. And I know some of you are like, you haven't talked about Guardians of the Galaxy, blah, 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 blah. You need a review. And I know, trust me. Trust me, I know. I did put up the buy list on the blog. So you have a reason to go to the blog, because the light hit the lake at the right angle and sit out the dark logo signal. Okay, so there you go. All right, so let's talk about inward and outward game. And what does that mean for you, the player? And you're going to be like, Dark Logos, you on that metaphysical stuff again? And I'm like, sort of, yeah. Mainly because of the state of the game right now is, I hate to say it, it's in this dead point of shenanigans where the I can't be killed teams are getting away with murder. Yeah, and that's how I feel. So the meta is sort of dead until WizKids fixes it. Until it's fixed, you're going to see Bizarro Resurrection Man and Absorbing Man Resurrection Man and whatever jank you want to add as your high level meta play. And there's some things that I got in communication from certain players that just let me know, like, they're not amused. So yeah. Anyway, so let's talk about inward game and outward game. What is inward game and what is outward game? Okay, and what does that have to do with you, the player? Let's start with where it really starts at is inward game. How you focus, how you process, how you view things. How are you going through the steps of becoming a better player? And then you have outward game. It is what your opponent sees and what your how you are manipulating the field to your advantage to force your opponent to have a perception. Okay. Now, continuing the weird metaphysical, jazz. There's a lovely anime that's known by very, very many hardcore anime lovers called Neon Genesis Evangelion. And it's and for those who don't know Greek, it pretty much it's an entire religious statement right there, done by Shinto culture, which is a whole different story. But that whole name in and of itself is like new beginnings. Is the good news that if you break it down, that's pretty much is it. Because Evangelion is where you get your word gospel from. So, oh gosh, epistemology. No, that's fear. No, sorry. It's not epistemology. That's not the right word. or is it epistemology? Anyway, whatever. So, what happened in this episode is like the last episode that they did, but really wasn't the ending. But they ran out of money and they didn't know how ridiculously popular that anime was going to become. They had a show, and pretty much you don't know if, like, spoiler alert, there's super giant beings called angels, and they don't know if the angels are trying to, if there's some weird angel doing some weird effect that's creating this whole scenario to happen. But what happens in the last episode is you see you see your characters, but it'll be this is the Masato that that so and so sees, or this is the Ray that so and so sees, and then you would notice that the perceptions of that individual, based on the individual who was perceiving him, the characteristics of that character were widely different. But then at the end, I think you start to see like the inward monologue of the actual character of, this is the Masato that's in Masato's head. And you would notice that the person that people were perceiving was very different from the person inside. Okay? And that is something very important. I know it's like, oh my gosh, this is so confusing. If you just watch the last episode, this little analogy will make sense a lot more. But pretty much it's like this. Sort of going back to the Facebook thing. There is the Edward Shelton you know as Dark Logos, and the Edward Shelton that you see, but there is the Edward Shelton in my head. Okay? And the Edward Shelton that you see, to certain degrees, is very different than the Edward Shelton in my head. That's just inevitable. You can't see inside my brain. All right? You might think you might know me fully, but you don't. And that's not to be rude. That's just like, I don't know you fully, the listener. I do know of you, but I do not know you. And then we're not even going to go into the levels of, does one truly know oneself? And then, yes, one could truly know oneself, but then it comes down to situational sort of things like that. But we're not even going to go into that. So your inward game is how you focus. And I'm going to take it to another anime / manga that I enjoy, which is Greatest Disciple Kenichi. And in Greatest Disciple Kenichi, they have two styles of ki, but it's mainly of fighting, really. One is sei, which is highly concentrated and focused and precise, and it's a full piece of self. Okay, it's not get hype time. It is pinpoint precision under relaxed circumstances, or of a very controlled essence to enact. I want to say to fully enact and display beauty, but that's not necessarily the pure definition of it. But to have full control to create the artistry that one wants to create through one's fist. Now, I am saying this in the terms of the manga / anime. And then there's do, which is very explosive, powerful, emotive, raw. It comes out brutally and naturally. It hits something primal. Okay. When I look at things and how my life has gone through, with my brother and I am a sei and he is a do. I am very precise, and even when we fought each other, when we both learned some martial arts, I was very focused the entire time, and he was very explosive. And then we're both laying on the floor hurt. But the same thing happens in heroclix. Okay. Many times I encounter people, and they're very calculating, and they're very like this, I do this other thing, and that's how I go for it. And then you encounter other individuals that are just raw, pure power, and it's emotive, and you can see that the way they play the team is an extension of how they feel. So a good example of, I would say, I can start with Do because this is an easier example. A good example of a Do player is George Masu. Every team that he plays at high levels is explosive. It expresses a aggressive positioning. He's not an angry guy. It just displays a aggressive positioning. It is meant to push you back. It is meant to fight you. It's meant to come at you. He won't play a hit and run stall game. He will come to wipe your whole entire force. Okay. Whereas like a example would be Ben Chung, and I'm not just bringing it up because he's Asian or whatever, but from the reports that I've read, and then also talking to the guy, everything that he does is very studied. It's very precise. There's a reason why A and B happen. There's a reason why C and D happen. There's a reason why X and Y happen, and the connections in between each has 100 different parallels to various subjects of gaming and literature and just human experience. And so even talking to the guy, he was showing me his book, and it was awesome. And at no point in time was like, hey guys, this is my book, check this out. He was very methodical in pointing out, why his book was needed in the game, and while explaining these very great in detailed thoughts. Okay, so you can start to see, like, you have these explosive people, and then you have these control people, and you might say like, hey, Dark Logos, what does that have to do with me? Because usually most players that play heroclix don't know what sort of inward person they are. And I'll put it like this: I didn't know what sort of inward person I was until I hit Gen Con. Because up until that point, here is how I approached games. If I went back to when I began, I was very calculating, and I was doing things like chess, and I was getting pissed off because I was losing the cheese. And as time progressed, it was more like giddy fun, and then it was like, I really want the LE. And so there is some self-actualization here, but it's really, for the longest time, I want the LE. What do I have to do to get the LE? And then the paranoia sits in of, what can beat this, what can beat this, what can beat this, which creates a very defensive player. Okay. And remind me one time to talk about the three vices that creates a shenanigan player, a defensive player, and an aggro player. Actually, I could just sum it up real quick and then go back on point. An aggro player is a person who feels that force is the proper action to take. A defensive player is a person who is paranoid. And a shenanigans player is a mischievous person that wants to feel intellectually superior, that they've outthought you and tricked you. Those are the three vices of the three main core styles of play. Is force as a solution, paranoia, and mischievousness. But anyway, it sort of going back to how I thought. And so I had my paranoia phase, and I even said, I think maybe almost a year and a half ago, I was like, I'm concerned that I'm making you all paranoia players, because that's how I come up with half of my stuff. It's like, what if my opponent plays this, therefore I will play that, and that will shut that down, but then I'm weak to this. I have this other figure to cover that hole. Just in case this one obscure piece shows up, I'm going to play this. Okay. And so even up to the rock tournaments, I was trying to focus myself by getting hype and becoming more confident in what I had. And that served me to just be adrenaline up, and my heart is racing, and at the end of a match my chest hurts. And that's not good. I'll tell you this. Probably the best thing that happened to me was at the Tulsa Rock. I lost in top 16 because my chest was sore for probably a day. Yeah. You might be like, "Dang, Dark Logos, you take this seriously." Yes, because in my mind, there's a whole other slew of categories that are pressing me to perform. Okay. Then, when I went to Gen Con, something hit me, and I'll say, "Hey, grace of God." But when the first round of qualifiers, I had peace. I had a lot of peace. And I had a lot of focus in my peace. And I was able to pinpoint the moment by moment, play by play of how to disassemble my opponent. And even though I may have been on the back foot, I never felt panicked. Okay. And so through both qualifiers, good, bad, ugly, and even final rounds, I never felt panic. Even when I didn't make top 32, I was like, "Oh, okay, cool, whatever." Off to battle royales, you know. That's just how I felt. So when the round was over, I would have this emotional release, and I would be thankful for my wins and never underestimating my opponent. And even at one point in time, while I was playing one gentleman, his friend came by during the match and said, "You're losing, aren't you?" And I told that guy, this is my opponent's friend. I said, "You need to get away from here and don't disrespect my opponent. He is playing a very excellent game of heroclix at this point in time." And I wasn't doing that to blow smoke up my opponent's butt, but he had a very excellent team, and you don't want people to be discouraged by their idiot naysayer friends. And if you have idiot naysayer friends, get rid of them, because they cause you to build monuments of nothingness to attribute to your own failures. Yes, they build monuments of nothingness to attribute to your own failures, to make you feel incompetent, so that they themselves can feel better. And that's why I don't deal with a lot of people that like tearing other folks down, but that's another story. Anyway, but I had this utter focus, and I listened to music that, instead of making me hype, instead of making me be like, "Yeah, punch him in the throat, yeah," that brought me down, calmed me, and allowed me to perceive beyond myself. Yeah, so you could say, definitely, yeah, Dark Logos, say personality. There are other individuals that, in that intense rush of adrenaline, that they are able to fully understand the positions that they're in and where they are and how to navigate it, and their instinct takes over. One of my students is a say, and another one of my students is a do, and trying to teach the two is not night and day. Well, it's night and day because there are two different places in the game and there are two different places of understanding. But trying to teach them, you're still giving lessons, but you're flipping the mirror, and you're walking through the mirror like they're two different worlds, and you're trying to say, you're seeing things in reverse. Let me tilt it this way. Now you understand it, and then come back through and say, you're seeing things in reverse. Let me tilt it the other way, if that makes sense. So that's a lot of the inward stuff, and the problem comes in is that most players don't know what type of player they are. And then you might say, "Well, Dark Logos, I'm a little bit of say and I'm a little bit of do," and I'm like, really, you're most likely one or the other, and you just don't want to commit, and that's probably why your play has sort of plateaued, because there's a point where a lot of that other stuff is just chaff. I'll just be honest. I think that's the one major flaw with American culture. I can't say Western society, but I can primarily say for American culture, is that when asked to commit to a position, most people don't want to because they think having more options is better, when in actuality, for the brain, least options is best. It allows you to perceive clearly. There's tons of studies about it. If you give an individual ability to pick between 15 brands that they don't know of product, and there's 15 just brands of product, same thing, 15 different brands, the person takes quadruple the amount of time to make their decision than if there were only 3 options. And you might say, well, there's a whole lot less to weigh. And I'm like, well, really, no. It's the same thing to weigh. What product am I going to get? The thing comes in is how quickly can you commit to something, and how that stall process can actually affect, even your survival. If you do not know an answer or options, or limited options, you're up there weighing everything. It takes too long to calculate. And even I did a show about why we create shortcuts in our brain. It's so that we're able to process quickly. That's one of the reasons why we have prejudices. Anyway, sort of going back is I really feel that if we commit to either a say or a do, then just sort of shift some things aside, that a lot better play will come out. It just will. And again, I don't want do. People think, say is a heartless machine, and do is people acting like an animal. It's not. It's a little bit more complicated than that. It's not being heartless, nor is it being a slave to your emotions. But there are some drives that are innate in some people that just aren't in others. All right, so that's pretty much your inward game stuff. I would say some other categories in the inward game is creating mental short list, so that you know how to walk through your team, what your team does, and aware of your team. There's a couple of games that I had this last weekend that if I had my mental short list for my team done properly, I would have at least been able to threaten one of my opponents and use my outwit a lot better than what I did. And just to be specific on it, I outwitted a character's impervious while I had Banshee on the field. Yeah. So, anyway. All right, so let's look at outward game. This is how other people perceive you. This is how people think that you are. Okay. One thing I've told this over and over again about me having the bag, the paper bag with my team inside, and how that came from me having Tupperware because people could see my team in a plastic bag. So I put it in Tupperware so they couldn't see my teams before, I revealed it. When people see me, and they tell me, when people see me with the paper bag for the first time, they think they 9 times out of 10 they think I have a team base. And if I don't have a team base, I have a colossal. Just period. Okay. Do you know how many times I've seen strangers try to tech against a colossal at the last minute, thinking that I had a colossal in my bag, and even asking me if I had a colossal in my bag? Okay, so what's going on? Their perception of me and their perception of the bag is not true, and corresponding to reality. Okay. But by having the bag, I have manipulated my opponent's perception to make them assume something that is not true. Okay. At larger tournaments, I bring a backpack, so there's no question they can't see what I have. But at local tournaments, I bring a bag, and for new players, they don't know what's inside, and then the experienced players are smart enough to know that whatever I brought, I already calculated to kill 9/10 of whatever they brought. So they stop looking. and trying to counter my team because they already know I've already thought of something. And most of the time I have. Sometimes I don't. Sometimes I get hit by something weird, like, oh, wasn't expecting you, but I digress. So there's that. The other thing is when we talk about outward game, it's like how I play my team. If we go to that aggressive mindset, if you make an attack and you tap your chips, your token chips, your poker chips, it's like tap on the table. And it's like John Stewart's going to arrange combat expert so and so, and make it feel definitive. Your opponent automatically feels that attack is going to land, and they're going to start perceiving the reality of after the attack, period, because you've planted in a thought that because you did an action that was forceful with the tap, as well as declaring an aggressive action, your opponent is already planning for that negative result to happen. Just watch it. Even if you miss, watch your opponent's reaction when you tap, and then watch your opponent's reaction when you hit and when you miss. Because when you hit, you'll notice that they just sort of expect it. When you miss, it's not just a sigh of relief. It's like, "Ooh, man, what just happened?" Okay, and you're able to apply a lot more stress on your opponent that way. Another thing that is interesting when we're talking about outward perception, and I know this for dealing with Megalo's Man this last weekend, how one is able to perceive something simple of what you're doing with your hands, with something as simple as holding dice. Like a lot of times we sort of ignore how our opponents are holding their dice or dealing with their dice during a tournament, but it's a really good tale about how their inward game is dealing with the outward situation. Okay, and this is something that a lot of people don't try to hide, what they really should try to hide. Because let's say you're a player that when you're most focused, you're spinning the dice around in your hand, you're very comfortable. Let's just say that hypothetically. So if I see that and you're doing that most of the game, and then you stop, and I can tell you're looking at something, this lets me know that whatever you're looking at is very important, and you're using more brain power than you were previously trying to make your calculation. So that lets me sort of take a shortcut and say, all right, I can see that he's looking at so-and-so. He's probably declaring to get you so-and-so. Therefore, while I'm thinking about what you're doing, I can figure out my counter. That gives me clock advantage. Okay. So, everybody's going to be like, I'm going to go back and look at games that Dark Logo's playing. I'm like, go ahead. Go ahead. You probably going to have one uploaded here soon. Go look at games of me playing. And if I know I'm being recorded, I try to say some things for the camera to make it entertaining. But you might notice some tells, you might notice some gives. Just if you find them, let me know so I can get better. Okay, but there's different things that people do. If you notice that a player, when they're fully thinking about a character, they're always going to touch that figure. They readjust it, and then they even though they don't need to, it's perfectly in a square, they keep readjusting it, or they keep making sure that the token's on there right, and stuff like that, or making sure the poker chips are there and whatnot. Those are some obvious gives and tells for our game. But here's the thing where it becomes awesome. You can project those things out there. You really can. And by projecting those things out there, you can make your opponent think you're unsure. You can make your opponent think that you're very confident. You can make your opponent think that you have no clue what's going on. I think the favorite story that I've heard recently is that Jake Williams sat down at a table at a big tournament, No one knew who he was. And he said, hey, is it okay if I have my pack on the table? I'm still learning some things. His opponent had this big, huge grin, and he knew he had him, because what was the thing that went into his opponent's head? This guy is new. He doesn't know what he's doing. I'm about to roll this fool. That's really what he was thinking. When in actuality, Jake had planted that thought in there so that the player lowers their guard, plays sloppy, and then makes miscalculations. Okay? So, you can see how you can mentally just sabotage people. Now, I'll say this. When you get to a certain point, you don't need to pull those Jedi mind tricks every day. And even with me, I might use them like 5% of the time, if that, just because I don't need them. I just don't need them, and they don't really work on me when people do them. So I just don't develop them. Another thing with outward game is table talk. This is more evident in chess, and definitely when you start dealing with blitz. It's a format of chess where both people have 5 minutes on the clock, and they have to play. And when you're playing blitz for money, table talk is freaking all over the place. Okay, I know this because I used to do competitive chess. But anyway, the main thing with table talk is, while the game is going, the opponent is trying to have a conversation about something else that's not imminent with the game. Now, some folks are like, well, that's just being friendly. Well, yes, depending on the individual, it can be friendly. And there's some individuals that it's a legit tactic. It's because if your brain is processing a response to your opponent's conversation, what's also happening, you're diverting brain power. Your opponent's having brain power diverted from actually focusing on the task at hand, which is winning the game. Now, a good table talker will probably say use maybe 5-10% at max of their concentration, just due to practice and experience, or they're just talkative people, on using table talk. Okay. If a person is not used to table talk, they may end up using 50 to 60% of their concentration on table talk and 40% on the game. Do you see the big shift in advantage? You're having a 90% concentration of one person versus 40% concentration of another person. Unless the 40% using person is a hyper genius and a savant at heroclix, you definitely have a major advantage. So anyway, that's definitely a category of interaction that I hate to say is probably going to become a lot more popular in heroclix, just because of how the game is going. Game's getting more competitive. Game is has more stakes involved. So anyway, definitely let me know what you think about this in the inside of your head segments. I know some folks don't like them. Some folks love them. I can tell with the emails. They'll be like, yo, Dark Logos, just tell me about my meta, please. And then some of them like, oh, dude, I really like the psychology stuff or the inward game stuff. Like, I really love that. So just let me know what your thoughts are. So we got some time. And so we're going to go start looking at ATAs because we can. And it's my show. And I'm going to talk about ATAs if I want to. ATAs if I want to. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out which is the last ATA that was put up. Okay, here we go. Great Darkness. There we go. Great Darkness. Great Darkness minions. Serve another Great Darkness keyword. At the beginning of the game, place a Live for Darkside token on each character's card if they can use this team ability. When this character uses regeneration, you may remove the Live for Darkside token from its card and not subtract 2 from the result. So that's pretty good. So you're guaranteed to have like one heal that's a uber heal. If you roll that 6, you're down on your last click. You're coming back. So good. I really do think that this is probably moderately worth it. But most of the figures that you would play it on, if you got that regen off anyway, I mean, you're going to have a stop click for a good chunk of those. But yeah, if not, I could definitely see it being good. Now, if you have a bunch of characters on there that don't have regen, then yeah, man, that's stupid. It's not worth the points. Next up is Legion of Doom. Characters using this team ability are wild cards, but can only copy team abilities of adjacent friendly characters using this team ability. If a character using this team ability is already a wild card, it may copy a second team ability, but only from an adjacent friendly character using this team ability. Why is this good and why is this bad? This is good because it allows pretty much a whole lot of Legion of Doom people who have Injustice League and whatever else that suck to get access to the good ones' ATAs. Good ones' team abilities. So, and let me see. Yeah, good ones' team abilities. Yeah, so like, let's see. Lex Luthor's a calculator. Okay, so Bizarro has Injustice League from the Fast Forces, and that team ability sucks so hard. It's a vacuum, a black hole of suck. But then you have like the Riddler, who has Batman enemy. That's awesome, sorta. And let's see, I think like Toyman has Superman enemy. Solomon Grundy has Batman enemy. That's pretty much just the influence of Arkham Asylum. Toyman's a wild card. That's not good. Lex Luthor, yeah, Superman enemy and Underworld. So that's a really good combo. So then you add in like, ooh, wild card, boom. Let's see if there's any mysticals. No, I don't think he needs any mysticals. So, yeah, no mysticals. But you do have some Injustice League in there, which I hate to say is total crap. So they really need to get like a Sinestro. Anyway, they need to get some better junk in there because right now it's sort of crap. Your best thing is pretty much Lex Luthor with Underworld and Superman enemy, and I think maybe Bizarro. Yeah, Bizarro. So those are your best team abilities. So overall, you're not gaining too much. It's all right. You're not getting a whole lot. It's mainly just so you can get a bunch of outwits. So, now where it might end up more coming along the lines of if you get a theme team and then you have a Legion of Doom member on there and you do have like your Mystics and other cool stuff, then they're good to go. So, nope, never mind. They have to be using this team ability, so never mind. So there is no. Well, actually, if you had two of them, and then and it was another theme, and you had two using a Legion of Doom, then yeah, you could copy if you had normal ATA, a normal wildcard, you could copy Mystics or somebody else, and then use that to get the other team ability on the other guy or whatever. Yeah, it's complicated, so it's probably not going to be used too often, but it's probably be something just to keep in mind of, just in case Legion of Doom by chance gets a Mystic or something that doesn't suck. All right, next up is Legion of Supervillains. Once per turn, when an opposing character targets a character using this team ability with an attack, and actions resolve modify the defense value of all characters using this team ability by +1 until the end of the turn. So it's a minor defense buff. I like it, but it doesn't help you if you got hit. But I mean, with Despotellus land floating around, I mean, I can sort of see how this can be nice, but I could also see how this isn't really that worth it. Next up is New Gods. Is at the beginning of the game for all friendly characters using this team ability. Choose a keyword possessed by an opposing character. When a character using this team ability is within 4 squares of an opposing character with this keyword, it can use sidestep uncopyable. It allows you to like just chase down figures or run away, but just to pay 3 points to get sidestep I, I'm not really too gung ho for it because you got to be within 4 squares. So, Brotherhood of Evil Mutants, characters using this team ability within 4 squares of another friendly character named Magneto can use willpower. Characters using this team ability named Magneto can use leadership. When they do, they may only remove action tokens from other friendly characters using this team ability. Now, it's nice if you have, if your team will work well if everyone's circled around Magneto, but having to be within 4 squares of Magneto is not good unless you have a whole lot of characters named Magneto on your team. Then go ahead. It'll work out really great. But overall, I don't think it adds some oomph to a lot of the Brotherhood teams so that they can get a little bit more bang for their buck for actions. I do think there's a way to get like Brotherhood and on X-Men and X-Men on Brotherhood, but I forgot which figure that does it, and I don't think it's Sinister, and I don't think it's Strife either, but there's a way. I think it's like Magneto and Professor X or something. I don't know. Anyway, definitely interesting. Next is Department H, designed by Patricia Lamb. So you go, girl. Pretty much the keyword is Alpha Flight. When a character using this team ability is KO'd, roll a d6 for each friendly character that can use this team ability. If the result is 1 through 4, heal this character 1 click. If the result is 5 through 6, heal this character 2 clicks. So pretty much what she did was give Suicide Squad to all of your Alpha Flight people, and then give Super Suicide Squad on a 5 through 6. So I give her props as like, I see what you did there. So it's something new, but we don't really have Suicide Squad in the meta right now. So that's nice. The only problem is that Suicide Squad was awesome for wild card abuse. But anyway, next up is Hellfire Club Inner Circle. Characters using this team ability can use stealth if they are adjacent to a friendly character using this team ability. A 2-figure stealth dependency, I'm not too gung ho on that. But to add stealth to a couple of your X-Men figures that couldn't normally get it, or a few of your Hellfire figures that could minorly benefit from it, I say, yeah, go ahead. Next up is Masters of Evil. And if I had to pick the villain team that I play the most, it's Masters of Evil. Really, when I look back, every time I get a new Masters of Evil, I usually try to bring out a Masters of Evil team. Anyway, Masters of Evil, when a character with this team ability has 1 or more action tokens, end attacks, damage dealt can't be reduced below 1. I like that because it still stacks with the standard Masters of Evil team ability. So it is copyable. So it's definitely some levels of abuse can be done there, because you're technically giving precision strike to a figure that has 1 action token. So definitely something to think about. Let me phrase it. It's not precision strike, but the damage part of precision strike on invincible. On impervious or something like that. Next up is Stark Industries. When a character using the team ability uses Outwit, you may instead choose a team ability the target character can use. Opposing characters 200 points and less can't use the chosen team ability until your next turn uncopyable. I like this for one reason. You can't like just shut down Galactus at 300 points or whatever, but you can hose everybody else really hard. You can't take away Superman's Superman team ability, but you sure can jack up Batman's day. So It has its advantages. At the same time, the limitation, I would say, is necessary, all things considered, because it's not always Tony Stark using that outwit. Okay. Next up is X-Men Utopia. It's the single highest point character using this team ability can use leadership, but only to remove action tokens from an adjacent friendly character that's using this team ability. If that highest point character is named Cyclops or Professor X and they use leadership and succeed, remove another action token from an adjacent friendly character that can use this team ability. Now, here's the thing. It doesn't require you to. You have to have succeeded, and you have to have removed an action token. But that second one that you remove has no point limitation. It just says remove an action token from an adjacent friendly character that can use that team ability. It didn't even say of lower points. So yeah, that's going to be abused somewhere. I don't know how, but that's going to be abused. And Golden Age in particular, because there's 100 Cyclopses that have leadership. So yeah, just watch out. You got, Juggernaut Colossus getting tokens taken off by Cyclopses and stuff. So yeah. Oh gosh. The team base. The team bases. Don't say I didn't give y'all nothing. Okay. Next up is X-Men Blue. If a character using this team ability uses leadership and succeeds, modify the attack value of all characters using this team ability by +1 this turn. Uncopyable. Now, the best part is it doesn't say once per turn, so you can use it like 3 times. So, yeah. Just watch out. Team bases, 15 attack. Just don't. It's going to happen. All right, next up, and last but not least, is X-Men Gold. Is once per turn, give a character using this team ability a free action when it's adjacent to a friendly character using this team ability, and choose an opposing character within 6 squares in line of fire. The chosen character combat values can't be modified until your next turn. So, hello, X-Men, you have outsiders. It's a complicated outsiders, but hello, X-Men, on top of your heel, you have outsiders. It's a 6 range outsiders, but you have outsiders. So yeah. That's today's show. I will say this: X-Men Gold definitely has a place in this meta. Definitely when you're looking at, hey, guy, I can modify my stats 15 ways to Sunday. So anyway, all right. That's it. You can follow me at StartOverPod. It came from outer space and told me the future is coming. Rejoice and be glad. You can find out my musings, random stuff, things that happen to me at tournaments and whatnot on Twitter. I usually just tweet stuff. I never try to be like blue. I spam you every day with Twitter, but once in a while, cool stuff pops up on Twitter. You can email me at startingoverpodcast@gmail.com. That's startingoverpodcast@gmail.com if you wish to opine. Keep it piffy, keep it interesting, keep it awesome, baby. Let me know what do you think about Patrick winning Dragon Con and just the state of the meta right now. What do you think of this undead jank? The fact that you have people that are playing teams where literally the team can't die. Definitely let me know. All right. Last but not least, you can check out the blog. It's startingoverpodcast.blogspot.com. Occasionally cool stuff comes up there. So yeah, that's it. My voice is hurting so bad. Don't sleep with your mouth open in front of a fan. Causes problems. Causes lots of problems. All right. Y'all have a good day. I'll check you later. And remember, we all got to start over sometime.